Aloha, aloha. What up, what up, what up from the not-so-sunny shores of Western New York. How are you all tonight? My name is Liam Thomas, and this is my inaugural podcast. Anybody that is checking this out, listening right now, it's something that I feel like I should have been doing a long time ago, but thanks to technology these days, I'm might as well jump on board and do it now. This podcast here, this is all about how we can rise above the institutions that hold us down, really, fear, and rise above fear and come together as people, as human beings, as we should, as equal, loving humans. Basically, it's about getting over the institutions like church and the political system and everything that bogs us down as human beings, and how to rise above that. And I'm titling the podcast "The Club," which is compassion, love, understanding, and benevolence. And that's fitting because this is coming in the wake of the massacre in the nightclub in Orlando, which is just had me so disgusted just to be a human being, disgusted just with my country, with the state that this world is in, and a lot of people blaming it on religion, and that's why we need a real talk about it. It's whether or not the Omar Mateen was a pledge to ISIS or a radical Islam or anything of that nature. Obviously, and this is not mind-blowing news, but way too many people throughout the course of our entire planet's history have been killed in the name of God and killed in the name of religion. And God and religion is supposed to unify us. We are supposed to be one. We're supposed to understand that we are one with everything in the world. And that's basically the message I'm trying to get across. That and the fact that we need a spiritual leader. We need spiritual leaders in this country. We don't need any more politicians. This is 2016. We have a disgusting looking candidates to choose from to run this show. Oh, we're going to choose the lying Hillary or the lying Trump. I mean, come on, people. You know that we can do a lot better than this. Whether or not I'm not denouncing or supporting either candidate or anybody in that running for that job, but it's not the development we need. We need spiritual leaders. We need people to teach us that, and to teach our country that we can have everything and we don't have to do these things to each other anymore, and that it's all a matter of belief, and that it's all a matter of love, compassion, love, understanding, and benevolence in the world. And we really, really need this. And to me, it's important, and it's a subject that I've cared about my entire life. It's something I love to talk about, and I know there's many out there that feel the same way and agree with me, and will be more than happy to share their thoughts and feelings. And I hope to expand this podcast into that area and enjoy that. Some real lively discussion, some real important discussion. It's not about the economy. It's not about the bullshit that you think matters. That really doesn't matter. But in essence of that, and because the massacres at the Pulse nightclub is what really launched me to say enough. I have to put my voice out there, because we need to start this on an individual basis, and the revolution happens inside first. And so we really need to get that out there. And basically, because of that, we should take a moment of silence for the LGBTQ community. Okay, thank you. I will start by opening up with a little bit about myself, and this one here, obviously I don't have anybody booked for this podcast tonight. This is just me talking kind of off the cuff and doing what I do, and I'm a conversationalist. I'm the type of person who likes to talk. I've always found myself just kind of sitting around in a room talking to myself. Anybody out there ever do that? You ever just kind of sit around and just, talk to yourself out loud just like this? Like, I'm pretty much just gonna forget that there's a computer recording me right now, and I'm just gonna go on and just talk like I would normally talk. I've recorded myself speaking before, and I find myself listening to it, and I surprise myself. I come up with some interesting things. My intention is just to kind of bring myself about in this podcast here, and then maybe if depending on how I edit it or whatever, and look at it, how I'll put it together and see if it's something that I actually want to share. But first, just to repeat, the show is primarily because we need spiritual leaders. We need people leading this country, people leading this world that believe and that understand that belief controls everything, and that what you buy into is what actually creates your reality. You can't just leave it up to the pawns and the puppets in charge. This is not going to get us anywhere. We've been doing this for years upon years upon years. It gets us absolutely nowhere, people. Come on, you know that. You know that it doesn't matter if you elect a Democrat or a Republican or what you nominate or who you decide to pick. And I'm not even talking about rigged elections. I mean, it doesn't even matter. What matters is you on an individual basis. And we need a revolution, but we need a revolution on an individual basis. And we need a leader, that is going to tune people in, because people need media, and that's the unfortunate thing. We have so many beautiful people in this country, but they don't believe a goddamn thing unless it comes through the fucking media, and that is fucking disgusting and disturbing. And I will try not to use such harsh language, but I get passionate, and I grew up in Buffalo, and I'm not a stranger to the curse word, so to speak. So anyway, where I'm coming from, I was born in Buffalo, New York, the West Side, but that's not really relevant to what the show is about. What is relevant to what the show is about, though, is that I was born Catholic, born into a Catholic family, and that's probably why I get so much of my, angst. I get a lot of angst from the Catholic religion, it's because it's a goddamn cult. It's a cult. And I don't want to jump out there and just alienate listeners or anything by saying that, by putting one religion down or anything like that. But, yeah, the God's honest truth. I was born into a Catholic family, and I remember, let me start out with an example. I remember when I was a little kid. I was about 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old, and I was sitting in the den in our house, and I was coloring a picture. And I was using my crayons and coloring in a couple cartoon characters or whatever. Don't remember exactly what they were, but I was coloring in a picture, and I went outside the lines. Ooh, right. I think most people can relate to this, right? I went outside the lines, and I looked at the bit, and I was trying my hardest, and I went outside the lines, and I said, oh, God. And I kind of rubbed my eyes, and I said, a couple seconds later, I said, damn. And I froze. I said, oh, my God. Oh, my God. I just took the Lord's name in vain. I was terrified, and I'll never forget this. I was terrified. A 5-6-year-old kid, I was terrified. And I stood up out of my chair. I ran out the house. My mother was in the yard gardening or something, doing something outside, hosing something down or whatever. I ran out there, and I go to my mother. I go, Mom. I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, God. I go, I'm so sorry. She's like, what? She's worried. I'm like, what? Oh, my God. I was coloring a picture, and I went outside the lines, and I said, God. I said, oh, God. And then a couple seconds later, I said, damn. She looks at me and she goes, don't worry about that. Well, wait a minute. Now, what? Now that might sound like a really simple situation, but you got to remember, I'm a 5-6-year-old, very impressionable child, yet my mother, who's sending me to this place, I went to Sunday school, the whole nine, had to take communion, everything, the whole thing. And so now it's like, well, okay, you're sending me to this place. You're making me get up at 6:30 on a goddamn Sunday, when I got school the next day anyway, to go to Sunday school, to talk to this crazy nun who writes in cursive, and I can barely understand what she's putting up on the board. And she's going to yell at me, and she's telling me that I'm going to burn in hell for all of eternity if I disobey these rules. And if I take the Lord's name in vain, that's a ticket to hell. And now you're seriously telling me that, oh, don't worry about that. I mean, how confusing for a child is that? It's ridiculous. But I tell that as a kind of a funny anecdote, that story. I don't mean any harm toward my mother. I know my mother was just following orders, so to speak. She was just doing what she knew to be best. But it speaks volumes, that story, because it shows in her heart, even though she meant the best that she possibly could. My mother was a beautiful person, is a beautiful person, but she did not mean to confuse me like that. She didn't mean to do this. She wasn't trying to trick me or make me feel strange. But the volumes the story speaks is that church, organized religion, has people so wrapped up in this fear. And they teach so much control and so much fear that even though my mother didn't believe in her heart, knew in her heart that the kid saying God damn is no big deal at all, and doesn't mean anything, and God is the word God, and God is the word damn, and God doesn't give a shit what you say, and God is everything. But she knows this in her heart, knew this in her heart, but still forced me to go learn these things and teach me these things because of the fear of there just might be a hell. And I know she didn't mean to relate such a sense of confusion to me as a child, and that's all I picked up from it. Now, not to mention that's how it began, but that was when I was 5 or 6. By the time I was 9 or 10, we all of a sudden, we changed faiths. We went from Catholicism, all of a sudden, my parents thought there was something screwy about that religion or something. Oh, hey, yeah, finally they fucking caught on. But they went from Catholicism to Christianity. And I remember being about 10 years old, and I said, wait a second. You can just change faiths? Like, you can just change religions? And I remember that at that point in my life, and I was only about 10 or 11 years old, and I remember thinking, how fucking serious can all this shit be? If you can just change faiths, like you can just change religions, like a pair of socks, or, you can just go, oh, well, we're not going to be Catholic anymore, now we're going to do this thing. And there's a whole new set of rules over here that you got to follow, and I mean, the whole thing just started to feel very made up, very phony to me. I didn't know where to go with it from there. I'm very thankful for that entire upbringing that I had, because that's what led me into where I am today. It led me, I'd always had a fascination with God, with spirit, with the planet, with eternal life, with the ideas and the concepts of this whole thing that apparently controls us. And that, I mean the idea of prayer as a child. When you're a child and you take this idea of prayer, oh, well, pray for it. They tell you that. They pretty much tell you, well, beg God to give you things. Beg the old man in the clouds. Hey, don't worry, he's not burdened by a million other prayers from starving kids. No, forget that. No. Just go ahead and ask him, and he'll grant them to you. And none of my prayers were ever answered as a kid. I remember praying for the most ridiculous shit. I mean, I prayed for ridiculous things. To calm off my head, but I always prayed to be a famous musician. That ain't never happened. Drugs got in the way of that. Well, where the fuck were you, God? Why did drugs get in the way, Why did you leave me alone when that guy offered me a line, Whatever. I'll digress. But, I always thought that it was kind of funny that they teach you to do this thing that has no tangible outcome. And now that I'm thankful for it, because now I have an understanding that, well, prayer is just the actual way of praying. The proper way of praying is to say a prayer of thanks. Thanks for even those things that you might not even have yet. And saying it that way is not good, because that's actually saying that you denying that you believe that you have it. And what you have to do is you actually have to believe you have something before you actually realize the manifestation of it. And in many, many, many ways, when you do things like that, it just feels like you're straight up lying to yourself. And that's not good. You don't want to do that. You can't just sit there and fucking lie to yourself. So obviously that's not right. But we need to actually exercise the idea of having rather than wanting. When you tell the universe that you want something, well, then you're going to experience wanting it, because it happens that fast. It happens that quickly, man. It happens so quickly that if you believe that you don't have it and you're begging for this thing, well, then the universe is going to tell you, hey, okay, well, you're begging for it. And here you go. Here's the experience of begging for it. But all you really need to do is understand that you already have everything, and then and act like you have it, and then you will have it. So understand it, act it, and have it. That's really the pyramid, the holy trinity, if you will. Thought, belief, and action. We put those three pieces together, and there's nothing we can't accomplish, especially working together. We have the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same actions. We can make a beautiful world where everybody wants to live. Nobody wants to run around and light each other up, and we can rise above these things. But it does have to start inside first. The revolution happens on the inside. And so I'll leave that there for now, and let me get back. I will tell you that I ended up coming across, and let me continue on with more of my life, of where in my life I came to these realizations. And that is, I got a lot into conspiracy theory, and that's a big topic of discussion on this podcast. We will talk a lot about reptilians. Yes, you heard me correctly. The lizard people. Yes, we will talk about the lizard people. We will talk about government control, everything that controls the six families, the six corporations owned by the 5 or 6 families, all that stuff. But the best thing about it is not to buy into it. If buying into it is what reinforces it and what keeps it perpetuated, what perpetuates it, So I personally, I got to the point where, and let me give you a little background information first. I got to the point where I pissed away and I glossed over this earlier. I pissed away my career as a musician because of drugs. I did a lot of drugs, I had a lot of drinking, and a lot of partying after the show. That's what the real problem was. Played a lot of music. I mean, I played drums, and I played vocals and guitar, and a little bit of keys, a little bit of bass, whatever, a little bit of this and that. Which was a lot like the theories we had as growing up on drug addiction. Really, if you do a little bit of everything, you don't get addicted to anything. Well, it's kind of a crock of shit, because I pretty much got not addicted, but I drank way more alcohol, because beer goes with everything. Booze goes with absolutely everything. Every drug, no matter what it is, you're doing it, and when you're sober, that's another one to do. So, it kind of, I threw a lot of shit away, and I became and I ended up with a couple of DWIs when I was 22 years old, and that pretty much isolated me to my house and a YouTube channel, and I was sitting on probation for 6 years or something, or 5 years, and didn't drive for 6 or 7 years, and pretty much threw a lot away, and sat there and had nothing else better to do. And that's really kind of the avenue I ended up when I was sitting around my house creating pieces of artwork. Now, during this time on probation, I became a vegetarian for a couple of years. Wasn't drinking anymore, different things. So I started cleaning myself up, but I was bored as shit, bored out of my mind. And I pretty much sat around and I had a lot of time to invest in conspiracy theories and getting into these types of things. And that's really where a lot of this kind of started from, at least as far as the conspiracy avenues go or what have you. I began a lot of that by researching on the internet and different things, and which can be a useful tool. The internet is a very useful thing, but there's also obviously a lot of bullshit out there, and everybody knows that. I'm not breaking any boundaries telling you that one. But what I ended up realizing through it, though, is that I started looking into a lot of different things. I started looking into a lot of different, look at people like Alex Jones and David Icke and all the showrunners of the conspiracy outlet that you get real fucking paranoid, man. You get real paranoid when you sit there and you start looking into these people and you realize that the whole world is run by these goddamn lizard people from outer space, pretty much, which sounds like it's just an insane science fiction novel, but is most likely the truth. Don't let that bog you down, but it's most likely the truth, where there's these lizard people chasing you around from place to place and controlling the entire world, and every conspiracy theory is likely true, and you're pretty much just a sheep, a pawn in the game. What happened with me was I was researching all of that, and I got to a point where it was like, okay, well, what do I do? Okay, so the United States government created 9/11. The United States government has been creating war since its conception. The United States of America has done nothing to unify people, but has done everything to separate its citizens. Once you really start realizing all of those things, it made me want to, I was on the verge of, okay, well, what do? I will build a fucking tank. I was going to build a tank filled with top-of-the-line artillery that you could find anywhere. As much machinery and gunpowder as I could possibly get in order to just blow out of my garage one day, homemade this tank, blow out of my garage and just cruise it down to DC and blow everybody up. And then what do? Well, you've only killed off one tiny section of the whole problem. And not only that, there's not enough ammunition in the world to stop these people, because what's going to happen? There was a guy I watched on YouTube who actually did build a tank in his garage, blew out of the side of it, killed about half his town, and then ended up blowing his own brains out inside the tank. And that's pretty much what would probably happen to you. If you didn't kill yourself, you're going to jail for the rest of your life. So, and you'll be considered on the news, everybody sees like an act of terrorism. They'll probably associate me with some sort of Islamic extremist or something, and send me off to jail. So I pretty much said, well, that's not an option unless I want to go to jail and have my name defamed and spoken against and whatnot, and that's pretty much it. Or I can kind of forget the whole thing. Well, what ended up happening was I started really researching the Illuminati. But what I started researching was, why are they called the Illuminati? They're called the Illuminati. What does Illuminati mean? It means the enlightened ones. So why are they calling themselves the enlightened ones? They're enlightened. Enlightenment, to me, is relegated to like Buddhist beliefs and very spiritually adept people, and that's at least how I thought at the time, and that's what I thought enlightenment kind of meant, and what it was associated with was always a spiritually connected and a shaman and understanding and peace and love. Of course, I found out later, and a lot of the Illuminati is really more so they're pointing more toward a Luciferian faith and a whole different can of bananas there, But at this time, how I felt and what I associated enlightened with and the enlightened ones with was always more of a more benevolent thing. So Why would you possibly call yourself the enlightened ones unless you knew that thought controls everything and is responsible for creation itself, really? And so then I realized, well, hey, our elites believe this and they understand this and they actually control our entire world and the way you operate, right down to the very thing that you're putting into your body right now. Whatever goddamn cheeseburger you're eating from some fucking fast food joint, or a bag of chips, or a soda pop, whatever you might actually have, that is actually showing you, well, you're under the control of these people, under the control of these 6 families, these 6 corporations. There's really only 6 real corporations that run the entire world. And we just sit here kowtowing to them, and it makes you sick. But then I started realizing, okay, well, they might be onto something. Obviously, they care about it. They care about it a hell of a lot if they're willing to go to war over it, if they're willing to kill each other over this. They obviously, the Illuminati, understand something that we don't, and they're enlightened. So there must be a real true point to this idea of enlightenment. And that's when I started researching a little bit of different dimensions, of different things that coincide with enlightenment, and that's when I came across channeling. I came across a guy who claimed to channel some very beautiful, very positive, integrative, unifying information, and a lot of the information that I got through this source actually brought me to tears at several different occasions, and actually helped me understand so much. And so beautiful, and this is a lot of the message that I want to impart through this podcast. Is a lot of the stuff that I've learned through my research and through readings and studies and countless hours I spent kind of unhealthily obsessed with the topic, and I've done an extensive research in this area, and it's really brought about a total different sense of understanding, community, and love for me personally. We are not just these little specks of dust, as the atheists would have you believe, but we are not these pawns ready to be judged by some other creature, like the Christians and Catholics would have you believe, or even Satanists. We are not, of course, Satanism goes into a little bit different of a thing if you actually study it. It goes into the idea of just denouncing all organized faith, which is understandable, and I understand that, although I'm not worshiping any negative entities anytime soon, because negative definitely exists. Negative exists and positive exists. You can't know one without the other. You must have negative in order to know what the positive is. You can't know one without the other. It's impossible. If there was only positive, then you would have no basis of comparison. You would not know anything, and you would just be completely one and enlightened with the rest of the world and the universe, and that's where we're headed. But what we are doing here now on Earth is experiencing the process of all that. And I mean, we're not meant to kill each other in the name of God. I mean, Jesus Christ's religion was love. He was not Jewish. Or maybe he was Jewish, but he wasn't practicing Judaism. He wasn't a Hindu. He wasn't a Muslim. He wasn't a Christian. He certainly wasn't a Christian. He wasn't a Catholic. Jesus, as we call him, but as Yahshua, was a beautiful spiritual master who understood that we are what we believe we are. And that's the main point, and that's the leader we need in office. We need somebody leading this country that knows that we are what we believe we are, that actually teaches we are what we believe we are, not just knowing it. Knowing it's not enough. There's a lot of people who know this, I believe, that are victims of political power and still have to come across and say things. Like, I think that's what happened with Bernie Sanders. I think he's a great candidate. He's an advocate for socialism. And when you look at socialism, you're talking about something that's going to unify everybody. And that's not what anybody wants. We don't want people unified. They don't want people together. And so basically, politics and religion, the things you're not supposed to talk about at work, will be the focus of this show, but obviously, more importantly, a whole new take on those things. What if Jesus was in office, in the Oval Office, flipping tables over? But yeah, we'll be taking a whole new look at this. A brand new but ancient approach, tangible but a spiritual approach to actually handling these problems and helping the beautiful people of this gorgeous nation. But, okay, I think I covered pretty much the basics of it, my little bit of my upbringing and what I went into and what I ended up following, and I believe that most of this will not fall on deaf ears, that it will actually be taken in by people who care, by people who love, and in closing, you have to know that you have it. You have to know that this reality that you want exists. You have to know 100% without any doubt in your heart that all of it that you want, that you say you want, exists. You have to stop wanting it. You have to stop praying for it. Stop praying. Do not beg. If you beg, all you do is remind creation that you don't have it. And then creation loves you so unconditionally that creation says, okay, well, here you go. Because all paths are valid to creation. If you tell creation that you don't have something, creation loves you so much, it says, okay, you don't have it. And it gives you the experience of not having it. But if you tell creation that you do have it, if you quote-unquote lie to yourself, you're not lying to yourself. You're understanding that you have it. It's a difference. There's a big difference there. It does feel sometimes like you're lying, and I know I glossed over that and spoke about it, but that's what it is. You do not believe that you don't have something. If you sit there and beg, oh, please God, stop all the famine. Please God, stop all the war. All that says is, hey, we still believe in famine. We still believe in war. And if you're saying that, then you're getting that. So we just need to stop that. And that's really all we need to do. That's really, really, really all we need to do. I've done it many times in my own life. I've known people who've done it in their own life. You do not need to beg creation. All you need to do is thank creation. And that's the most serious point I could possibly ever make. If we all collectively just thanked creation for no mass murders, there would never be another mass murder. You can sit there all you want and say, well, no, people are crazy. There's Islamic terrorism. There's homegrown terrorism. There's all sorts of people out there just hell-bent. There's hate crimes. There's KKK. There's Nazis. There's, Black Panther's going to come kill white people. Whatever the fuck you want to think. It's not true. This is media propaganda. Shit does happen, but it only is happening because we believe it can happen. Stop believing it can happen. We need a leader to teach us to stop believing that it can happen. It doesn't need to be that way. This is so simple. And I'm thankful that there will be many other people on here with me talking about this. And I am thankful that we will eventually learn all this. And I am thankful to be a part of it. So thank you all for listening. Next time we will be talking to published author of the Shibboleth, T.J. Mullane. We'll be discussing parts of his new story, Etched in Stone, which deals a lot with the Ten Commandments, as we call them, in Christianity and whatnot, but he'll be giving us a different look on that. And we'll be also talking with Justin Ben Yosef, established screenwriter for a podcast that he wrote called Vultures Over Low Doves. And we will be discussing all these topics and many more in the future. The illusion of power, the illusion of money, the illusion of time, all these things that we are slaves to. We are not slaves. Wake up. We need to wake up, people. The human being is the most intricate and beautiful machine on this planet. We need to start acting like it. We need to start showing those that think they're in charge that, hey, you're not. You are another human being. But yes, we will be talking about all these things, and we'll definitely be getting into a little more into the lizard people idea with Mr. Ben Yosef there. And yes, please join, and thank you all for listening. I love you all unconditionally, forever, as well as I know you love me, although you might not even know it. As always, I will be signing off with compassion, love, understanding, and benevolence to you all. Have a beautiful night.